Back, boys and girls, we have arrived at the 45 spot of our list. And Peter, our choice is Geza Maroczy, the Hungarian legend, one of the Hungarian legends on our list. He's born in 1870 in a city that I spent a lot of time in, Szeged, Hungary, where Peter Leko also is from. What can you tell us about Maroczy and his claim to fame?
Well, I mean, we tend to value World Championship performances very high, and he doesn't have any of those, but he should have. In 1906, he has established himself as the challenger for Lasker, and they had agreed to a match, but somehow it ended up being cancelled. And so, in that sense, he didn't get his chance to actually prove his worth on the highest stage. But when we look at sort of the statistics backing up his claim to getting that shot, they are, well, I think self-evident. According to Sonas, the leading statisticians, he was number one for as many as 2.5 years on the rating list between 1904 and 1907. And well, I understand it's artificial, but still, his peak rating, according to Sonas, was 2820, which is quite higher than some of the others we've debated. So he was really up there being, well, the best player in the world and ready to challenge the reigning King Lasker. And then somehow it fell apart negotiation-wise and such. So, I mean, this is a player that manifested himself as possibly the best in the world, was ready to take on the king, and then he didn't really get his shot. But we still think that he was up there for so long and so convincingly that he deserves to be in this Hall of Fame.
So he was a bit at the end of Lasker's reign and before Capablanca came into full strength, of course. He played against all these people, but that was his window, right, where he could have.
No, exactly. And I mean, as you said, it's the sort of coming to the end of Lasker's reign. So he could have had a chance to be the one who, well, maybe on a cheap background would be the one dethroning Lasker. But even so, dethroning someone of that caliber would have been huge. And we would have seen Maroczy in an even much bigger light. And, well, you mentioned Capablanca. I mean, he had a lot of respect for Maroczy. And, well, we will show a game fragment which Capablanca said it's just, well, that some people might tend to underestimate Maroczy, but it shows his excellent technique and has become a textbook game of how to handle the end game. So it's a very beautiful ending against Marco.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I mainly, before we did this series, thought of Maroczy as a structure where we have pawns on e4 and c4. Of course, I knew he was a historic player, but I did not know he was that close to the very best.
For me, absolutely the same. I thought that, well, it was a decent player who was lucky to get his name on an incredibly good setup, but it was actually the other way around. It was the world-leading player who would then, by mistake probably, we more connect to his pawn structure than to being the best player at some point in the world, right?
Yeah, style-wise, from what I read, yeah, more of a defensive guy, more into structures, technique, and so on. You could argue that, yeah. Some others in the Hungarian school have followed his blueprint. But yeah, let's look at a game segment. Maroczy is black against Georg Marko in 1899. So this is a young Maroczy. He's 19 years old. Oh no, I can't do math. He's 29 years old. Ignore me. Why is black better here, and what's good about this?
I guess the knight on c4 is nice, right? And the pawn on a3 is weak. But even so, you would be expect that you would be able to clear it off with a couple of good moves. But very methodically, he improves his positions. And first, well, you can see he's going to fix the weakness on a3. Then that's stage one. Stage two is that, well, he needs to involve his king and break somewhat through Black's fortress. So he brings the king back to the king side to do that in a number of stages. Well, you see first the pawn, now a3 is fixed, right? So the king has done his job on b6. Actually, recently Magnus Carlsen has done some work on his best games, and there is one or two examples that are extremely similar here. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't sort of inspired by this classic. So,
yeah, in a way, this is the stuff you often find in old textbooks, and it's not so easy to find anymore. No, stage one, put the pawn on a4, fix a3. Stage 2, bring the king back to the king side. Stage 3, go f5, gain more space on the king side. Stage 4, go f4, create inroads for the king. And yeah, you can see it in these older games where in a very pure manner. While nowadays, I don't know, White would have gone on some suicide mission with 93, 95.
Yeah, maybe also that's what you debated also with Nimzowitsch, that textbook games at that time becomes more textbook because of the lack of resistance in some way, right? I mean,
exactly. Doesn't make it any less.
No.
Yeah. Good, the technique and the planning. But yeah, you would.
Moderate tactics, but not really. I mean, now the A pawn is a huge.
5, pick up A pawn. Yeah. And stage 6, use a pawn.
Well, and use Zugzwang to break through
the knight.
Yeah,
use Zugzwang to break through.
But still, he sort of finishes off nicely with a tactical solution here when we get to the end, right?
Wow, 93. King d4, really? Not in a hurry. King b2, he was worried?
Yeah, isn't this... You're saying it's... Well, there King a2 was winning, but you could play King c2 forcing this kind of things. But I don't know. It becomes at least tactical. He just does it very methodically and such. But
No, seems to know what he was doing. c5 also nice, avoiding this stalemate. And after
maybe by modern standards, you would not be overly impressed. I would still think it was good technique, but this is a long time ago and one of the earliest, where you see this kind of thing. So I think it shows quite some understanding.
Yeah. We're not saying that Maroczy would crush Levon Aronian in a match. We're saying he was an excellent player in the early 1900s.
Exactly.
He might crush Levon, no.
You'll never know.
Anyway, statistics, and as you mentioned, his historical rating and just his status as number 1/number 2 for quite some period there clearly earn him a spot on that list. So go check yourself out some Geza Maroczy.